Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a huge video. After seeing Friday's news event, which ended up pumping Bitcoin's price to the upside, we have now just seen Bitcoin's price flush down, liquidate to those levels we're looking for. So we're going to jump into this on Bitcoin today, how all of this ended up playing out, what ended up causing this huge pump, and now that we've finally seen our price targets get hit and price fall down into our area of interest, how we're going to be trading this market moving forward, seeing as how the Bitcoin dominance continues to break down during all of this, and that the majority of the altcoin market has actually held up and not set new lows while we've seen Bitcoin actually flush and take out its lows. And we're also going to jump in and have a look at a few news events coming up, as there is a lot planned over the course of the next month or so, which could send price parabolic and continue to give us that alt season that we're looking for. So lots to jump into in today's video, guys. Let's jump into it. Okay, so firstly we're going to start here with Bitcoin and have a look at what ended up happening after Friday's video. And what basically happened was that Jerome Powell ended up coming out and saying that they are going to consider cutting rates. Now the market and retail, being retail, thought that this was bullish, and we ended up seeing Bitcoin's price shoot to the upside here. However, like discussed in Friday's video, what we were looking for was Bitcoin's price to come down to these lows into our area of interest and potentially see Bitcoin backtest that previous all-time high down here at 109,000. Now that we have seen price wick down into our area of interest, what we'll be looking for now is to see if we do get the V bottom from this area that we were looking for and see Bitcoin's price shoot back up above 119,000, or are we looking for Bitcoin to flush just one more time in the next 24 hours, take us down to that $109,000 level before we can then reverse up higher. Now personally, having a look at the liquidation heat map here, I don't see any reason why price should go any lower. As you can see in the last 24 hours, with that one candle that pretty much liquidated the whole market, you can see that there was about $300 million of long liquidations taken out here from what was a pretty clear manipulated move. And now that we've had that move and all the long liquidity has been wiped out on the back of this pump where a lot of people just jumped in and piled in long. Now that we've seen that happen, what we can see here on the liquidation heat map is that all of the leverage lies to the upside, and it's short liquidations that should be targeted next, which makes me think that the market is most likely going to move to the upside next, with a minimum target here of about $118,000. So moving forward, I do think we will see the V bottom from here. However, not to be surprised if we do see price shoot down one more time and then V bottom from there. Now, moving into the altcoin market, you can see that Ethereum was barely affected during this move, and that a lot of the money is actually flowing out of Bitcoin into a lot of these alts, and they're holding up quite well in a time like this, which is represented here on the Bitcoin dominance. As you can see, the Bitcoin dominance has just been falling this entire time that Bitcoin has been also falling, leading the altcoins to actually outperform Bitcoin, which if we have a look at 2021 here, you can see that this is exactly what happened. When the Bitcoin dominance started to fall, a few coins started to outperform Bitcoin, but the majority of the market just held up better than Bitcoin while it sold off. And it wasn't till this midpoint roughly around here when all of the altcoins started to rip and go into that parabolic phase. So we are seeing the market play out quite similar. We just haven't got to that stage yet where the altcoins have ripped. And I think what's most likely going to lead us into that is the World Liberty Financial coin, which is actually launching on September 1st. And if we combine that with what we're seeing here on the Bitcoin dominance, and now the fact that the Dow Jones did break out into a new all-time high on Friday, this is most likely going to set us up for a pretty exciting September. And I just don't see a world where a coin like this, backed by Trump and his family, isn't going to stimulate a lot of interest into crypto and most likely pump the rest of the market, especially at a time where you can see that the Bitcoin dominance is in free fall here to the downside. And I do believe we are at the end of a market cycle where we should start to see coins go in for those final parabolic moves like XRP here, which has just been consolidating at the top of this breakout structure. And I think once we start to see Bitcoin V bottom and break back to the upside here, we will see a lot of the altcoins continue to outperform, just like we've seen here, but in reverse, as Bitcoin has been breaking down and a lot of these alts are just holding up. I think when Bitcoin actually goes for that push to the upside here, like we're expecting, that a lot of these altcoins will continue to outperform, which means even bigger green candles for the altcoin market. And like we've been discussing on the channel here for the last couple of weeks, we are expecting the altcoin market to go into that final parabolic phase and essentially enter similar market dynamics like we've seen back in October and November of last year, where things just broke to the upside and then got parabolic. And if we combine that with the fact that in 23 days there is a Fed meeting and we still have an 87% chance that they're going to cut, combining that with the fact that if we have a look at what happened here when Jerome Powell came out and said that the Fed was going to cut, clearly the market thinks rate cuts are bullish, which is most likely going to lead to prices continuing to move to the upside. So it's been a pretty crazy couple days in crypto here. Clearly some extreme price manipulation going on. However, our target zone has been hit now, and we are looking for Bitcoin to move to the upside. If we do have to see one more flush to the downside to about that $109,000 level, even though there is no liquidity sitting down there, then so be it. However, I think the move that comes next is the push back to the upside. And what we're looking for while all of that happens is the Bitcoin dominance to continue breaking down, and a lot of the altcoins that we've been monitoring here on the channel to continue to outperform against Bitcoin, like ADA, Solana, XRP, Ethereum. And that even now in the last 2 hours, you can see Solana is breaking out of this accumulation range and pushing to the upside, all while we see Bitcoin chopping around down here at the lows and the rest of the market kind of stalled out. We do see leaders and a rotation of capital happening now as Solana has just broken 2 new highs from this accumulation range. And if we tie this into what we discussed previously on XRP, what we did discuss was that we were looking for XRP's price to move to the upside and then eventually come slam back to the mid-range before it can then break out, accumulate, and go, like Litecoin did back in 2017. And even if we have a look at the way prices played out here for Solana, you can see something quite similar. It has shot to the upside, taken out these highs, come all the way back down to the mid-range, and now we see it breaking out, setting new highs, which is the structure that we were looking for here on XRP. However, we just haven't seen that capital rotate into XRP yet. And if there's one thing I can tell you about alt seasons, what you typically see is coins run, outperform the rest of the market, and then you see a rotation of capital into the next coin or the next narrative that ends up running, while the coins that have been outperforming start to consolidate. And then eventually you see capital flow to coins that haven't been moving, and then they start to pump. And right now what we're seeing is a lot of the capital flow out of Ethereum. Solana starting to get some attention, and that eventually XRP will have its moment in the sun. But for the time being, it looks like Solana is going to be the next coin that ends up running after we have just seen Ethereum basically lead the market for the majority of August, pushing as high as 47% over the last 21 days. But all in all, guys, seeing everything that we wanted to see play out, price targets get hit, massive liquidations, massive market manipulation, the types of things that you want to see that end up marking bottoms. Alternatively, we could see a news narrative pop up in the next 24 hours, which then ends up taking us down to that second red target at about 109,000. So far, pretty happy with what we can see here, that 112,000 level was swept and taken out, and now price has recovered back above that. And a lot of the coins that we discussed last Friday, like ADA here, for example, have back tested, perfectly nailed the targets that we discussed, and I have scaled into a few positions like ADA and Solana back on Friday. Still waiting for an XRP entry. However, if price holds here, it's most likely that this will be the local bottom for XRP before we can see price move to the upside, especially if we do see Bitcoin V bottom from here. However, still just keeping it in the back of my mind that we could see the $109,000 level tap, so not getting too exciting yet. But a lot of the price targets that we discussed last Friday that we were looking for, price ended up back testing those levels and breaking to the upside now. So guys, I think we got a pretty exciting week and a pretty exciting September ahead of us. There's still a little bit of time left in August to see price move to the upside, but I think September is going to be the most exciting time for crypto. And as long as this Bitcoin dominance keeps breaking down, there is going to be a point when the altcoins just go parabolic, most likely at the mid-range of the breakdown of the dominance here, like discussed earlier that we've seen play out in 2021. So if you enjoyed this content, feel free to leave a like on the video. If you're new here, you can subscribe down below. If you have any questions, drop them down below in the comment section. And I think things are about to get pretty exciting here in crypto. The next week to 40 days are going to be pretty exciting from what I can see here on the charts, and I'll be here through all of it to keep you guys updated on how I see things playing out. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.